Hi folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this presentation, I'd like to talk, please listen to this presentation rather as you would a radio broadcast, but in this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of how the globalists and the globalist elite, that are not the majority, by the way, in the Western world, how they seem genuinely unable to comprehend why Donald Trump is popular with the people. Now, to what extent he's popular, they deride those who support him as just toothless hillbilly hicks from the Appalachian Mount or the Ozark Mountains, inbred with their cousins and this sort of stuff. And those are the people that support him. And we can't let these low-life plebeians decide who's going to be populism, because populism means Hitler. You know, think popular is Hitler. That's it. The association is immediate and direct, and they can't understand it. And you know, I can't tell you how many lunches, dinners, barbecues that I've been to where the subject has come up over the last several years. And no one seems to be able to understand or pretends, I don't know whether it's a show, I think it is in some cases a show, pretend not to understand why or how it's even possible that Trump could be popular. Why? Why do people vote for him? Why? As if they don't understand. Now, the same goes for a lot of my business colleagues or former colleagues and people in the business community that I've worked side by side with. They don't seem to get it either, and they'll just say, "Oh, well, the people that vote for him are just all those hillbilly plebeians and the lowlifes. It's the great unwashed. It's the hoi polloi. It's them. They do it. I mean, just the same people who supported Hitler." And so the conversation's barely gone a sentence before Hitler gets thrown up. But and they don't seem to grasp it at all. To me, it's quite obvious why Trump is popular. I'm not confused in the slightest, and haven't been. I'm surprised he got up in 2016, but surprised only insofar as the entire media machine and establishment was directly against him, and so I'm surprised he managed to win in spite of that. But that he's popular and so on, that his policies are well regarded and so on by the people is not surprising to me in the slightest. Now, I guess I had the advantage of doing a huge amount of business travel and sitting next to politicians and their advisors and captains of industry and so on. So, so I could see the globalist world order taking shape. Now, when I first saw it, I thought, no, I'm imagining this, or it's just a temporary or momentary aberration. And I didn't see it was part of a long game, as in the march through the institutions and so on. I didn't see it as, or identified or realize it was a long game, but we came to work that out after a while. And what I saw was that increasingly the globalists, not that I had a name for them at the beginning, were increasingly taking over the entire political and socio-political narrative in the Western world. There was the move away from facts and accuracy and accurate reporting. The politicians were not representing the people anymore, were not representing their interests, and were moving further and further away from the people and closer to this international cabal, which of course was the globalists. Now, I saw that process taking place and didn't like it. I believe that the rule of law was the rule of law, and due legal process should exist, an independent court should exist. And I was watching the politicization of the courts, the move away from due legal process, that people were being persecuted for effectively having the wrong political views in certain areas. And this caused me a great deal of concern. Being a history buff as well, I suppose, helped to put this in some sort of perspective in terms of the grand historical time narrative. But I saw this coming away, and as I think back now, was Margaret Thatcher, the conservative Tory Prime Minister in England, which she got rid of because she wasn't compliant enough to globalist requirements or globalist demands. Now, I've noticed that the globalists can get rid of a prime minister anytime they want. In Australia, there was a prime minister that wasn't going along with the globalist narrative sufficiently, so they just got rid of him. And an elected prime minister that was elected with quite a decent majority. You're out, buddy. You're no longer of any use to the globalist project. And they can do this in most places unless they're a fixed term type place, say in the United States, where the president is there for a fixed term, this sort of thing. But in the case of prime ministers, where they're not installed in that position in a fixed term, they can get rid of them anytime they want. And if you look at across the Western world, the list of prime ministers have just been heaved overboard when they're no longer any use to the globalists or opposing the globalists or aren't sufficiently on board with the globalist project. That's all it takes, and they just get rid of them. So I watched this transformation taking place and realised that, hold on a minute, that our laws and so on are being subverted. Due legal process doesn't exist anymore. Social reorganisation is being forced on the people without their consent. The propaganda machine is telling us so many lies, and we're being fed absolute vast numbers of lies. Every government report is now propaganda. Every government statistic is propaganda. We're being lied to, cheated, stolen from, misrepresented. And on top of that, there was the feminist movement. All men are rapists, child bashing, pedophile abusers, and so on. Again, absolutely outrageously exaggerated statistics, or completely invented numbers. And whenever these social adjustments were, for example, changing the family structure through the use of divorce and so on, then it was men that were forced to pay for it. So you constantly saw these wealth transfers going on. For example, bringing in vast numbers of third world illiterate peasants. It's white people who are being forced to pay for it. So there's a wealth transfer from them. It's not coming from the multinational firms. They're being richly rewarded for supporting the globalist project. So everywhere, the public-private partnerships is to reward globalist multinational firms and to steal money from the people. For example, you have a look at some of the toll roads. There used to be roads that the government built. Now the government does a public-private partnership, and in order to travel down that road, you have to spend $10 a day. So that money is being transferred from the pockets of the citizenry into the pockets of the public-private partnership consortium, which is in itself a globalist flunky stooge outfit. So there's a lot. So I saw all this going on, and that the people were, white men in particular, were being demonized as racist, Nazi, Hitler, wife-beating, fascist, misogynist, and there's endless. There's classrooms going through, or there's traveling road shows going through young primary schools where you get 6-year-old kids, and they're being told that they're rapist, fascist, Nazis, and the list goes on and on. And I saw my son went from who was quite a diligent, conscientious student, and I supported his academic efforts totally, and he got selected to go to what was called a selective school, where it's meant to be for the brightest kids. But when I saw the 6 kids from his school that were going to that local selective school, it was 3 girls, 3 boys, 3 white, 3 non-white. Now at the time, the non-white kids constituted maybe 10% of the class, or 10% of the school that year, and yet they're being that they were given half the places in the selective school thing. So when now I saw all this going on and realised that we're being controlled by not our government, and they're not responding to the wishes of the people. Many things are being imposed upon us, and the heavy use of lying and cheating and treacherous deception and so on is so widespread that it can't be a legitimate form of government and control. If you have to rely on so many untruths and so many deceptions, then you can't have a legitimate government, or can't have a legitimate system of serving the population. And serving the population itself had changed. The population wasn't being served by the politicians. the politicians were increasingly being controlled by the globalists. Similarly, I noticed a decline in the quality of politicians. Politicians were people, or hitherto, not maybe every one of them, were capable of independent thought. Again, not all, but they were capable of independent thought. Their advisors, some of the advisors were very, very bright, very capable, top drawer sort of quality people, but they weren't. That went downhill. The people like AOC and David Lammy and Diane Abbott, they started to creep in, and they started to become by far and away the majority of the political class. But again, governments were no longer sovereign; they were being run by the globalists, and the globalists were imposing their system, whether the populace wanted it or agreed with it, whether they voted for it, and so on. So, and if you didn't go along with it, you were demonized as being a Hitler. So I saw all this going on, and there was no politician really anywhere in the Western world that represented the people anymore. Every politician represented the globalists and was employed by them to enact and implement and enforce the globalist project against the will of the people. And so then along comes Donald Trump, and he's saying, no, I'm going to represent the American people. I'm going to improve your standard of living. I'm going to make your life better. I'm going to give you a say in the government, and I'm going to stop outsourcing jobs to China, and I'm going to do this and do. So he came up with a whole suite of policy. I'm going to take ideological fanaticism out of the education system. He was talking about things that the people wanted and were prepared to vote for. So why did people want Trump? Because he had the policies. So I'm representing you. I'm going to make your life better. I'm not going to spend gazillions of money on these crazy green energy schemes that technologically can't deliver the outcome that's needed. When the technology's there, fine, I'm all good with that, says Trump. But until that time, we're going to provide low-cost energy for our citizens. Now, remember, the cost of electricity is something in the order of 3 to 4 times higher than it needs to be. The difference is all the subsidies that are given to the so-called green energy thing, none of which works particularly well, if at all. So, and when the technology's along, fine, but until then, so 3 to 4 times. So that electricity bill that we get for, I'll use round numbers here to illustrate the point, but that electricity bill we get for $100 a quarter should really be somewhere between $25 and $30 in reality. The rest is all artificial taxes and tax breaks and incentives and handouts that are given to the green energy industry, which the globalists have a huge position in. So, and this is just one of many examples. And Trump's saying, well, I think he recently came out with the policy, I'll reduce American consumers' energy costs by up to half in the earlier part of his administration if he gets up in November. Now, if you look across this is why Trump is popular. It's not complicated. Nothing about this is complicated. Trump is putting forward policies that the working people, people who have to live on a budget, care about. Now, if you don't have to live on a budget, and you've got a job for life that's well paid, where you don't have to perform, where there's no reviewing of your performance, as long as you're saying how much you hate white people or something, you've got your job for life. This is quite different. So when I'm sitting, having dinner with, like a dinner party thing, and there's a whole bunch of people there. There's a rich barrister that gets a huge amount of government work, a lawyer that gets a huge amount of government work. There's a Superior Court judge who gets, who's got a job for life on $500,000 a year plus super generous pension and retirement. There's a deputy dean of a university who gets again, somewhere in the order of $500,000 a year plus lots of travel and handouts, and he's got a job for life. And then there's a rich socialite who's who's president of the Art Gallery Association. It's those sort of people that are there. None of them have to think or worry about money at all. They've got guaranteed incomes, guaranteed prestige, guaranteed everything, and they do look at everyone else as being a member of the great unwashed, and they sneer at anyone who has views, and they don't understand why, because they don't need to care about the things that Trump talks about. They don't have to care about their energy bill. They don't have to care about the cost of milk and eggs and bread at the local grocery store. They don't have to care about. They're not living side by side with illiterate peasant mass immigrants that are playing music until 4 a.m. and talking loudly on their balconies and defecating in your front yard. They don't have any of that. They live in the richest postcodes in Australia and that are 99.9% white and so on. They don't have to put up with none of the fallout of the mass migration or of the changing structure of the economy really affects them. Now, a few of them, or all of them actually, have children. So why wouldn't they care about their children's future? But they don't seem to look that far. I'm surprised that people who are that wealthy, they don't have to think about tomorrow or the next day or the day after. All they have to think about is, I'm okay here and now. I own two $5 million houses. I've got a job for life, and it pays very well. I'm hanging around with they live in the bubble. These people. I'm probably the only person, or my wife and I, are the only people who are outside of the bubble. And I've noticed recently, after I said something that was sympathetic to Trump, I've noticed our invitations to these dinner parties have dropped off quite considerably. So I think we're persona non grata now, in some places at least. So I don't have any problem understanding why Trump is popular, but they seem to have they think that the policies he has are just for those plebeians greater. Why would you care about those people? They're nothing. They're not even the shit on my shoes. Why would I care about? And that sort of thing. And I'm staggered by that. Why would you think that way of your fellow citizens? Now, I know there's a difference between people living in, $10 million waterfront mansions and people who are, living in squalor. I do get that. There is a difference. And, some of the people that I meet, I think, holy crap, and you've got the right to vote. Wow. So I do understand the sentiment, but the inability to understand how those policies, Trump's policies, that is, are popular with people, I don't get how they don't get that. It's beyond me. If you're struggling to pay your energy bills and someone says, look, I can reduce your energy bills by half, and here's how I'm going to do it, wouldn't that be popular? And why is being popular wrong? If it appeals to people who are at the lower end of the socioeconomic scale, that is perceived as something bad in itself. Only the elite should have an opinion. But what is their opinion? It's there are people at the dinner table, and this really irritates the crap out of me anyway. There are people at the dinner table, and whether it be the lunch party or the dinner party, there are people there who they've never had to go for a job interview in their lives, ever. They've never had to sit down in front of someone they don't know and say, look, I'm the right guy for this job. It doesn't matter what the job is, whether it's the managing director of X or you're digging holes in the road or something, but they've never had to sit in front and they don't know. And everyone everywhere they've worked, everyone who's they interact with is everyone in that same bubble. And so they've got no idea what it's like to actually have to work for a living and to be responsible and to have their performance reviewed. That they don't have any of that. There's one guy was involved in, one of the guys at one of the dinners we were at, and he was involved in quite a major business sort of scandal where there was allegations of corruption and illicit payments and so on. And he sort of, I suppose he got fired in a way, but his payout package was, I mean, anybody would want to get fired if that was how they were going to be. So he got he still had a more he lives in like a $4.5 million place, and he still owed sort of $1 million or something or thereabouts on the mortgage, and so they paid him out. So, well, how much is your mortgage? Okay, so this is them getting rid of him. Okay, well, make sure you get $1 million. Or they gave him then a $200,000 vehicle. Okay, you can keep that. That's yours. And then some other bits and pieces. And he said, "Oh, look, I want to do an extension on the house. How much is that? 300,000. Okay, done." And so that he walked out the door with like over $2 million. And this is a guy who's been corrupt and was at one stage looked like he was going to end up going into prison instead, and all his legal fees were covered by these guys. So these are the sort of things that go on. So he's there, and he's talking about how the people at the bottom, I only want them to come and clean my pool and mow my lawn and this sort of thing, and so he's talking. He's never been accountable. That's the other thing that gets me. These people have never been accountable for anything in their lives, and they're outraged at the thought that they should ever be accountable. But it comes back to the sort of the point. The end of it here is they don't think that the working people, if I can use that term, have the right to be heard or should be heard. They should be dismissed, and if they support Trump or support his policies, say in the case of reducing the energy, then it's them that are at fault. And if Trump relies on them for support, then that means he's Hitler, and so on and so forth. And it's insane, because these people don't have to worry about the things that the other people do. So their frame of reference is particularly narrow and I would argue self-serving. It pains me to think that these folks who are so if you want to get white privilege and privilege, these are the ones that you should be looking at. No, I don't begrudge them any of that. I don't know. It irritates. It can be not irritating. It can be annoying, I guess, that people so lazy and entitled should be able to swan around pretending that they're demigods. That's a bit on the nose. But the idea that 80% of the population should be dismissed as being the hoi polloi is very concerning. And there are other things too. For example, radical feminist education in the schools and this sort of thing. These people are mostly on board with this ideology, but without understanding it or knowing what it means. So don't you know that 90% of women are raped and beaten every day by their husbands? Well, that can't be true. That's nonsense. Oh, well, even if it is nonsense or untrue, it doesn't matter because men need to learn that they have to, and so on. They live in this delusional fantasy world. Yet these are the people that support the globalist project and claim to be absolutely befuddled as to why Trump has appeal. To me, it's not a surprise at all. He's a nationalist. He's there to support and represent the American. And I've even said this at some of the dinners. Okay, well, do you realize Trump would be or when he was president, he's the president of the United States. He's there to represent the American people. Is that a bad thing? Oh, you Hitler. No. He's there to represent the American people. He's there to make their lives better. Don't you agree? I mean, that's not a complicated thing to grasp, is it? But and then I'll get the hard stare of, oh, well, you're just a Nazi. And it's, no, fuck that. So I've never had a problem understanding why Trump is popular. Never, not for a minute. I've been surprised again, given the media machine and the establishment being so heavily against him, that he's managed to prevail and get this far. That surprises me. But I've never for a moment doubted why he's popular. And just from my perspective, that certainly the policies that I've seen, I'm aware of, that I support all of them 100%, and think that he'll be a very good thing, not only for America, but for the Western world at large, if he can implement his policies. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.